Going to the Hartlocks tonight, Edward?
Oh, I suppose so. Are you?
Well, yes. Horribly tedious parties they give, don't they?
Oh, horribly tedious. Never know why I go. Well, never know why I go anywhere.
Well, you see, I come here to be educated.
Ah, I hate being educated.
Well, so do I. It puts one almost on a level with people who work, doesn't it?
Oh, yes.
But my dear Gideon Shilton is always telling me that I should have some serious purpose in life. Sorry, I mean, of course, serious purpose in life.
Yes.
Yes. So, I come here trying to find one.
Well, I don't see anybody here tonight in what could possibly call a serious purpose. Now, the woman I escorted to dinner talked to me about her husband the whole time.
How very trivial of her.
Oh, terribly trivial. What did yours talk about?
Well, about myself.
And were you interested?
Not in the smallest degree.
What martyrs we are, my dear fellow.
And how well it becomes us. Shall we?
Oh, yes, let's.
Lady Caversham, Sir Gideon, lovely to be here tonight. Has my good-for-nothing daughter been here?
Good for nothing. I don't think Lady Goring has arrived yet.
Why do you call Lady Goring good for nothing?
Because she leads such an idle life.
How can you say such a thing? I mean, she rides at 10 o'clock in the morning, goes to the opera 3 times a week, changes her clothes at least 5 times a day, and dines out every night of the summer. I wouldn't call that leading an idle life.
You are a very charming young lady.
Very sweet of you to say so, Lady Caversham. You should come visit us more often. You know we are always at home on Wednesdays.
Can't stand London society these days. Never go anywhere now.
Oh, but I love London society. I think it has immensely improved. You see, it is entirely made up now of beautiful idiots and brilliant lunatics. Just what society should be, in my opinion.
Oh. And, out of these two categories, which one does my dear daughter fall into?
I've been obliged as of yet to put Lady Goring into a class quite by herself, unfortunately. But she is developing charmingly.
Into what?
That is beyond me, but I hope to let you know very soon, Lady Caversham.
You will love the Shiltons. You know, Lady Rosemary is a most upcoming politician, and I would...
Lady Markley and Mr. Cheveley.
Thank you, dear. And my coat, dear. You know, it is rather cold outside. You don't suppose it's still summer, it should be warm. I do it myself, then. Thank you very much. Good evening, dear Gideon. Meet my nephew, Mr. Cheveley. So kind of you to let me bring him. Such charming men should know one another.
I believe Mr. Cheveley and I have met before, though I knew him under a different name.
Well, people nowadays marry as often as they can, don't they? It is most fashionable. Dear Lady Caversham. How is Lord Caversham? Brain still weak, I suppose, but that is only to be expected, is it not? His dear father was just the same.
Have we really met before, Sir Gideon? I can't remember where. I've been out of England for so long.
We were at school together, Mr. Cheveley.
Indeed. I've forgotten all about my school days. I have a vague impression that they were detestable.
I am not surprised.
Do you know, I'm quite looking forward to meeting your clever wife, Sir Gideon. Since she has been at the government's foreign office, she has been so much of the talk in Vienna. They actually succeed in spelling her name right in the newspapers. That in itself is fame on the continent.
I hardly think you'll find much in common between yourself and my wife, Mr. Cheveley.
see you're wearing mother's pearls. They look very well on you. Though I don't quite understand why you have to wear them with a black dress. You're not in mourning, that I know of.
Oh, Rose, I'm always in mourning. Right now, I am mourning. Oh yes, a diamond that I lost off of one of my riding boots. It was quite dreadful. It happened just this afternoon.
A diamond?
Yes.
We'll speak of this later.
Evening.
Oh, good evening, my dear Lady Markby. Good evening. I hope you have brought Sir John with you.
Oh, I brought a much more charming person than Sir John. Since Sir John has started taking seriously to politics, his language actually become quite impossible. Really, now that the House of Commons is trying to make some change, it really does a great deal of harm.
I hope not, Lady Markby. At any rate, we do our best to waste the public's time, don't we?
Oh, yes.
But who is this charming person you have been kind enough to bring to us?
His name is Mr. Sheevley, the son of my sister-in-law, married one of the daughters of Sheeveys, I suppose, but I really don't know. Families are so mixed nowadays. Indeed, as a rule, everyone turns out to be somebody else.
Mr. Sheevley, I seem to know the name.
Yes, just arrived from Vienna.
Oh, yes, I think I know whom you mean.
Oh yes, he knows everyone there and has such pleasant scandals to tell about all his friends, and I really must go to Vienna next winter, and I hope they have a good chef at the embassy.
If there is not, the ambassador shall certainly have to be recalled.
Oh yes.
But pray point out Mr. Sheevley to me. I should like to see him.
Oh, let me introduce you. My dear! Lady Racefair is dying to know you.
Everyone is dying to know the brilliant Mr. Sheevley. A diplomat in Vienna write us, but nothing else.
Danke, Lady Rosemary. An acquaintance that begins with a compliment is sure to develop into a real friendship. It starts in the right manner. And I find that I know Sir Gideon already.
Really?
Yes, he has just reminded me that we were at school together. I remember it perfectly now. I have a distinct recollection of Sir Gideon always getting the good conduct prize.
And what prizes did you get, Mr. Sheevley?
My prizes came a little later on in life, and I don't think any of them were for good conduct. I forget.
Well, I'm sure they were for something charming.
I don't know that men are always rewarded for being charming. I think they are usually punished for it. Certainly many charming young men remain bachelors.
What an appalling philosophy that sounds. To attempt to classify you, Mr. Sheevley, would be an impertinence, of course. But do tell me, at heart, are you an optimist or a pessimist? Those seem to be the only two fashionable religions left to us nowadays.
Oh, I'm neither. Optimism begins in a broad grin, pessimism ends with a dreary state of mind. Besides, they are both of them merely poses.
You prefer to be natural.
Well, sometimes, but it is such a very difficult pose to keep up.
What would all those modern psychological novelists and public speakers of whom we hear so much say to such a theory as that?
Concerning me, I'm sure they would find some theory or other. But should you wish to apply it to yourself, you will find it impossible. You see, the strength of women comes from the fact that psychology cannot explain them. Men can be analyzed. Women merely admired.
You think science cannot grapple with the problem of women?
Well, science can never grapple with the irrational. That is why it has no future before it in this world.
And women represent the irrational.
Beautiful women do.
I fear I could hardly agree with you there. But do sit down. And now tell me, might you leave your brilliant Vienna for a gloomy London? Or perhaps the question is indiscreet.
Questions are never indiscreet. Answers sometimes are.
Well, at any rate, may I know if it is politics or pleasure?
Politics are my only pleasure. You see, nowadays it is not fashionable to flirt till one is 40, or be romantic till one is 45. So we poor men who are under 30, or say we are, have nothing open to us but politics or activism. And I find that activism has simply become the refuge of people who wish to annoy their fellow creatures. I prefer politics. I think they are more becoming.
A political life is a noble career.
Well, sometimes. And sometimes it is a clever game, Lady Rosemary. And sometimes a great nuisance.
Which do you find it?
Combination of all three.
But you have not told me yet what makes you honor London so suddenly. A summer is almost over.
Oh, I don't care for the London summer. It is too, matrimonial. People are either hunting for spouses or hiding from them. No, I wanted to meet you, it is quite true. You know what a man's curiosity is, almost as great as a woman's. I wanted to meet you immensely and to ask you to do something for me.
Okay, but it's not a little thing, Mr. Cheveley. I find that little things is very difficult to do.
No, I don't think it is quite a little thing.
I'm so glad. Do tell me what it is.
Later on. And now, may I walk through your beautiful house? Hey, your pictures are charming. Poor Baroness Arno, I'm used to... You remember the Baroness? Used to tell me you had some wonderful Monets.
Did you know Baroness Arnheim well?
Intimately. Did you?
At one time.
Wonderful woman, wasn't she?
She was very remarkable in many ways.
I often think it is such a pity she never wrote her memoirs. They would have been most interesting.
Yes, she knew men and cities well, like the old Greek.
Without the dreadful disadvantage of having an Odysseus to deal with.
Lady Goring?
Good evening, my dear Amelia. Mr. Cheveley, allow me to introduce to you Lady Goring, the idlest woman in London.
I have met Lady Goring before.
I did not think you would remember me, Mr. Cheveley.
My memory is under admirable control. And are you still unmarried?
I believe so.
How very romantic.
Oh, I'm not at all romantic. I'm not old enough. I leave romance to my seniors.
Lady Goring is a result of the Alexandra Club, Mr. Cheveley.
Oh, sure reflects every credit on the institution.
And, may I ask if you are staying in London long?
That depends partly on the weather, partly on the cooking, and partly on Lady Rosemary.
You are not going to plunge us into a European war, I hope.
Oh, there's no danger. At present.
You are very late. Have you missed me?
Yes, awfully.
Then I'm sorry I did not stay longer. I like being missed.
That's very selfish of you.
I am very selfish.
You're always telling me of your bad qualities, Lady Goring.
I've only told you half of them as yet, Miss Mabel.
Are the others very bad?
Oh, quite dreadful. When I think of them at night, I go to sleep at once.
Well, I delight in your bad qualities, personally. I wouldn't have you part with one of them.
Oh, very nice of you. Then again, you're always nice. By the way, Miss Mabel, I want to ask you a question.
Yes?
Who brought Mr. Cheveley here? That man with the purple bow tie who just went out of the room with your sister.
Huh. I don't know. I think Lady Markby brought him. Why do you ask?
I haven't seen him for years, that's all.
What an absurd reason.
All reasons are absurd.
Well, what sort of a man is he then?
Oh, brilliant in the daytime and dashing at night.
Ah, I dislike him already.
And that shows your admirably good taste. Well,
Is there someone behind me?
I hope not.
Just a second. May I have the pleasure of walking with you to the music room, Miss Mabel?
Delighted. Quite delighted. Aren't you coming to the music room, Amelia?
Not if there's any music going on, Miss Mabel.
Oh well, the music is in German, you wouldn't understand it anyway, I guess.
But my dear Mr. Trafford, I love to hear my relatives abused. It is the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Miss Fairfax?
Oh, Miss Fairfax. Oh, Mr. Trafford, yes.
Hello.
Oh, yes, you see, relatives, you see, are just a tedious pack of people who haven't the remotest knowledge of how to live, nor the smallest idea of when to die.
Oh, that is
It isn't.
Well, I won't argue about it. You always want to argue about things.
That, my dear Tommy, is what things were originally made for.
Oh, is that clever?
It is perfectly phrased, and quite as true as most observations in modern life.
Well, I am sick to death of cleverness. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people trying to out-clever other clever people. It is a public nuisance. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
Oh, we have.
Oh, what do they talk about?
Well, about the clever people, of course.
It's a delight to see you here.
Oh, madam. What are you doing here? Wasting your time as usual, I suppose. Be in bed, madam. You keep too late hours. I heard of you the other night at well, his Lady Trafford's, dancing until 4 o'clock in the morning.
Well, Mother, it was only 4:45. It makes all the difference.
I can't understand how you stand London society. The entire thing has gone to the dogs and is filled with a damned bunch of nobodies talking about nothing. Get your feet off the stairs.
Well, I love talking about nothing, Mother. It's the only thing I know anything about.
You seem to retire for pleasure. Just like that,
My
Hannah.
dear Mother, what else is there to live for? Nothing ages like happiness.
You are heartless, madam. Truly heartless.
Oh, I hope not, Mother.
Another thing is...
Good evening, sir. Basil,
Hallelujah! I had no idea you ever came to a political party.
Oh, see, I adore political parties. They're the only place left to us that serve churros.
I delight in churros. I eat them all day long, but I can't bear sparing some for others.
Well, the thing is, politicians never eat churros, so I'm very happy that they're here. You know, politicians, you talk so much, but they do not listen.
No.
You see, I have a theory about this.
Oh, pray tell.
It is very, very dangerous thing to listen. If one listens, one may be convinced. Anyone, especially a woman, who allows herself to be convinced by an argument is a thoroughly unreasonable person.
That accounts for so much in women that I've never understood, and so much in men that their wives never appreciated them.
Our wives never appreciate anything in us. We have to go to others for that.
Always to others, have we not?
And those are the views of the two gentlemen who are known to have the most admirable wives in London.
Yeah, and that is exactly why I can't stand. You see, my Regina, she's quite hopelessly faultless. She's really unendurably so at times. There's not the smallest element of excitement in knowing that woman.
Really? How terrible! The thing should be more widely known.
Oh, Lady Basildon is quite as bad. She really can be unreasonably domestic. Excuse me.
My poor Edward. We've married perfect wives. And we are being well punished for it.
I should have thought they were the wives who were punished.
Oh dear. They are as happy as possible.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. But, come to think of it, trusting us. It's really tragic how much they trust
Oh,
us.
perfectly tragic.
Or comics, Sir Basildon.
Certainly not comic, Lady Goring. How unkind of you to suggest such a thing.
Well, I am afraid Lady Gorin is in the camp of the enemy, as usual. I saw her talking to that Mr. Chively, yeah, that's the man. I saw her talking to Mr. Chively when he came in.
Handsome man, Mr. Cheveley.
Yeah, but, I've heard that he went to the opera on Monday night, and told Emma Rufford at supper that, as far as he could see, London society is entirely made up of dandies and the unstylish.
No.
And quite right too. I mean, the men are all dandies and the women are all unstylish.
The
aren't
men
they?
are all dandies and the... Oh, you really think that is what Mr. Cheveley meant?
Of course. And a very sensible thing for Mr. Cheveley to say too.
Why are you talking about Mr. Cheveley? Why is everyone talking about Mr. Cheveley? You said yourself, Lady Goring, you said that... Oh, yes, that he was brilliant in the daytime and dashing at night.
Oh, what a horrid combination.
Yes.
It's so very unnatural.
Yes.
You know what I really like? I like looking at geniuses. I'm listening to beautiful people.
That is morbid of you, Mr. Marchmont.
I am so glad to hear you say that. You see, Mrs. Marchmont and I, we've been married for
7 years.
yeah, 7 years. And she has never even once told me that I was morbid. Women are so painfully unobservant.
Well, I have always said, dear Oliver, that you were the most morbid person in London.
Oh, but you are always sympathetic, Edward.
Is it morbid to have a desire for food? Because I have a great desire for food. Lady Goring, give me some supper, please.
With pleasure, Miss Mabel.
How awful you have been. You have never talked to me the whole evening.
Well, how could I? You went away with Mr. Morbid over there.
Well, you might have followed us. The soup would have been only polite. Don't think I like you at all this evening.
I like you immensely.
Well, we should show it in a more marked way.
Aye.
You should, Lady Caversham. Lady Caversham.
Of course.
Hello, dear. Now, about your daughter. Do you think you could possibly make her behave a little bit better occasionally? Just as a change? And it would make a change, trust me.
Yes, it would. Sadly, I have no such influence whatsoever over my daughter.
Well,
I wish I did. If I did, I know what I would make her do.
I'm telling.
I'm afraid she has one of those terribly weak natures that just are not susceptible to influence.
She is heartless, madam, truly heartless.
It seems to me I'm a little in the way here.
It's very good for you to be in the way and to know what people say of you behind your back.
I don't at all like knowing what people say of me behind my back. Makes me far too conceited.
And are you going to any other country before you leave England, Mr. Cheveley?
Oh, no. I can't stand your English house parties. In England, people actually try to be brilliant at breakfast. That is so dreadful of them. Only dull people are brilliant at breakfast. And then the family skeleton is always reading family prayers. Ugh.
Oh, my stay in England really depends on you, Lady Rosemary.
Seriously?
Yes, quite seriously. I want to interest you in this great political and financial scheme. About this Argentine Canal Company, in fact.
What a practical and tedious subject for you to talk about, Mr. Cheveley.
Oh, I like tedious and practical subjects. What I don't like are tedious practical people. There's a wide difference. Besides, you are interested, I know, in canal schemes. You were Lord Radley's secretary, weren't you? When the government bought the Suez Canal shares.
Yes, but the Suez Canal was a very great and splendid undertaking. It gave us a direct route to India. It had imperial value. It was necessary that we should have control. This Argentine scheme was a commonplace stock exchange swindle.
A speculation, Lady Rosemary. A brilliant, daring speculation.
Believe me, Mr. Cheveley, it is a swindle. Let us call things by the proper names. It makes matters simpler. We have all the information about it at the Foreign Office. In fact, I sent out a special commission to inquire into the matter privately, and they report that the works have hardly begun, and as for the money already subscribed, no one seems to know what has become of it. The whole thing is a second Panama, and with not a quarter of the chance of success that miserable affair ever had. I hope you're not invested in it. I'm sure you are far too clever to have done that.
I have invested very largely in it.
Who could have advised you to do such a foolish thing?
Oh, your old friend and mine,
Who?
Baroness Arnheim.
Ah, yes. I remember hearing at the time of her death that she had been mixed up in the whole affair.
It was her last romance. Her last but one, to do her justice.
But you have not seen my Monets yet. They are in the music room. Monets seem to go well with music, don't they? May I show them to you?
I am not in the mood for palms or haystacks tonight. I want to talk business.
I'm afraid I don't have any advice to give you, Mr. Cheeley, except to interest yourself in something less dangerous. The success of the canal depends, of course, on the attitude of England. And I'm going to lay the report of the commissioners before the House of Commons tomorrow night.
Oh, that you must not do, Lady Rosemary. In your own interests, to say nothing of mine, you must not do that.
In my own interests? My dear Mr. Cheeley, what do you mean?
Lady Rosemary, I will be quite frank with you. I want you to withdraw the report that you intended to lay before the House on the grounds that you have believed that the commissioners have been prejudiced or misinformed or something. Then I want you to say a few words to the effect that the government is going to reconsider the question, and that you have reasons to believe that the canal, if completed, will be of great international value. You know, the sort of things ministers say in cases of this kind. A few ordinary platitudes will do. Nothing in life produces such an effect as a good platitude. It makes the whole world kin. Will you do that for me?
My dear Mr. Cheeley, you cannot be serious in making me such a proposition.
I am quite serious.
Pray allow me to believe that you are not.
But I am, and if you do what I ask you, I will pay you very handsomely.
Pay me!
Yes.
My dear Mr. Cheeley, I'm afraid I don't quite understand what you mean.
How very disappointing. And I have come all the way from Vienna in order that you should thoroughly understand.
I fear I don't.
Lady Rosemary, you are a woman of the world. And you have your price, I suppose. Everybody has nowadays. The drawback is that most people are so dreadfully expensive. I know I am. I hope you will be more reasonable in your terms.
If you will allow me, I will call your carriage for you. You have lived abroad so long, Mr. Cheeley. They seem to be unable to realize you're speaking to an English woman.
I realize that I am talking to a woman who laid the foundation of her fortune by selling to a stock exchange speculator a cabinet secret.
What do you mean?
I mean that I know the real origin of your wealth and your career. And I have your letter too.
What letter?
Oh, the letter you wrote to Baroness Arnheim when you were Lord Bradley's secretary, telling the Baroness to buy Suez Canal shares. A letter written 3 days before the government announced its own purchase.
It is not true.
You thought that letter had been destroyed. Oh, how foolish of you. It isn't my position.
The fact to which you allude was no more than speculation. The House of Commons hadn't yet passed the bill. It might have been rejected.
It was a swindle. Lady Rosemary, let us call things by their proper names. This makes everything simpler. And now, I am going to sell you that letter. And the price I ask for it is your public support of the Argentine scheme. You made your own fortune out of one canal. Now you must help me and my friends make our fortunes out of another.
It is infamous what you propose. Infamous!
No, Lady Rosemary. This is the game of life, as we all have to play it, sooner or later.
I cannot do what you ask me.
You mean you cannot help doing it? You know you are standing at the edge of a precipice, and it is not for you to make terms. It is for you to accept them. Supposing you refuse...
What then?
What then, Lady Rosemary? You are ruined, that is all.
Remember to what point your Puritanism in England has brought you. In olden days, nobody pretended to be a bit better than one's neighbour. In fact, to be a bit better than one's neighbor was considered excessively vulgar and middle class. Nowadays, with our modern mania for morality, everyone has to pose as a paragon of purity, incorruptibility, and all the other 7 deadly virtues. And what is the result? You all go over it like 9 pins, one after the other. Not a year passes in England without somebody disappearing. Scandals used to lend charm, or at least interest, to a woman. Now they crush her. And yours is a very nasty scandal. You couldn't survive it. If it were known that as a young woman, secretary to a great and important minister, you sold a cabinet secret for a large sum of money, and that was the origin of your wealth and your career, you would be hounded out of public life. You would disappear completely. And after all, Lady Rosemary, why should you sacrifice your entire future rather than deal diplomatically with your enemy? For the moment, I am your enemy. I admit it. And I am much stronger than you are. The big battalion's on my side. You have a splendid position, but it is your splendid position that makes you so vulnerable. You can't defend it. And I am in attack. Of course, I have not taught morality to you. You will grant me that I spared you that. Years ago, you did a clever and unscrupulous thing. It turned out a great success. And now, you have to pay for it. Sooner or later, we all have to pay for things we do. You have to pay now. Before I leave you tonight, you've got to promise me to suppress the report and to speak in the House in favor of this scheme.
Would you ask, is it possible?
You must make it possible. You're going to make it possible. Lady Rosemary, you know what your English newspapers are like. Suppose that when I leave this house, I drive down to some newspaper office and I give them the scandal and the proofs of it. Think of their loathsome joy, of the delight they would take in dragging you down, of the mud and the mire they would plunge you in. Think of the hypocrite, with his greasy smile and penning the leading article arranging the foulness of public placard.
Stop! You want me to repress a report and make a short speech stating that I believe there are possibilities in the scheme.
Those are my terms.
I will give you any sum of money you want.
Even you are not rich enough to buy back your past. No one is.
I will not do what you ask me. I will not!
You have to. If you don't...
Oh, wait a moment. What did you propose? You said that you would give me back my letter, didn't you?
That is promised. I will be in the public galleries tomorrow night at 11:30. If by that time you'll have heaps of opportunity. You made an announcement in the House in the terms I wish. I shall give you back your letter with the prettiest facts and the best, or at least most suitable compliment I can think of. I intend to play quite fairly with you, Lady Rosemary. One should always play fairly when one has the winning cards. The Baroness taught me that, amongst other things.
You must have had some time to consider your proposal.
No, you must settle now.
Give me a week, just 3 days.
Impossible, I have to telegraph to Vienna tonight.
My God! What brought you into my life?
Circumstances.
Don't go. I consent. The report shall be withdrawn. I will arrange for a question to be put to me on the subject.
Thank you. I knew we should come to an amicable agreement. I understood your nature from the first. And now, you can get my carriage for me, Lady Rosemary. I see the people are coming up from supper, and English always get romantic after a meal, and that bores me dreadfully.
There you go. Yeah, I'm on my way.
Oh, it was such a lovely dinner, dear. You must give the recipe to my...
sauce?
It was only Italian pasta. It's not that advanced.
Oh, so lovely and dear Mr. Sheedy, I hope you have enjoyed yourself. Lady Rosemary is very entertaining. Is she not?
Most entertaining. I've enjoyed my talk with her immensely.
She has a very interesting and brilliant Korean. What are they doing? She has married a most admirable husband. Sigurd Children is a man of the highest principles, I am very glad to say. I am too old myself. Too old to trump. But I always admire people who are so noble as Sigurd, and he has a very nobling effect on life. And though his dinner parties are rather dull sometimes, so do you think, but one can't have everything, can they? But now I must go, my dear. Shall I call for you tomorrow?
Oh, thank you.
No, thank you. We should drive in the park at 5. Everything is so fresh in the park now.
Except the people.
Well, perhaps the people are a little jaded. I have often observed that the summer as it goes on produces kind of a softening to the rain, but, you know, nothing is as bad as high intellectual pressure. That is the most unbecoming thing there is. It makes the ears of a young girl so large, and there is nothing as hard to marry as large ears. You men don't like them.
Oh, I like
do
large
you?
ears. I think they're beautiful.
Really, dear?
I like tongues.
What is...
Well, I don't know. It's just that, you know, people... You can't just judge people based on the size of their ears, you know.
Very. Oh, thank you,
Yeah,
dear.
it's just whatever it is. There we go.
I'm so grateful that I have you
Go
here.
off, I think. There we go.
Good dear. Good night, dear. And good
We
evening,
gotta
dear.
go
Good evening.
Oh, good evening, Lady Monkey.
Yes. Can you? Yes. Yes, of course.
Yes, we're going with them.
Well, I
Yeah,
thank you.
it's true.
I don't
We're going to
know
the
what
Hawklets instead, I think.
Yeah.
To the Hawklets. Yes,
What a charming house you have, Sir Gideon. I've spent a delightful evening getting to know your wife.
Why did you wish to meet my wife, Mr. Cheveley?
Oh, I will tell you. I wanted to interest her in this Argentine scheme, of which I dare say you have heard, and I found her most susceptible. Susceptible to reason, I mean. Rare thing in a woman. I converted her in 10 minutes. She's going to make a speech in the house tomorrow night. We must go to the public galleries and hear her. It will be a great occasion.
There must be some kind of mistake. That scheme could never have my wife's support.
Oh, I assure you, it's all settled. I don't regret my tedious journey from Vienna now. It has been a great success. But of course, for the next 24 hours, the whole thing is a dead secret.
A secret? Between whom?
Between your wife and myself.
The carriage is here, Mr. Cheveley.
Thank you. Good evening, Sir Gideon. Good night, Lady Goring. I am at the clergy's. Don't you think you might leave a card?
If you wish it, Mr. Cheveley.
Oh, don't be so solemn about it. Why shall I have to leave a card on you? It has proven difficult to introduce the more civilized customs of the continent here in England, so I suppose I must. Will you see me out, Lady Rosemary? Now that we both have the same interest at heart, we shall be great friends, I hope.
What a horrid man.
You should go to bed, Miss Mabel.
Lady Goring?
My mother told me to go to bed an hour ago. I don't see why I shouldn't give you the same advice. I always pass on good advice. It's the only thing to do with it. It's never of any use to oneself.
You're ordering me out of the room, Lady Boring. Find it most courageous of you, especially as I'm not going to bed for hours. Well, you can sit down if you like. Talk about anything in the world except the opera, Mr. Cheveley, or the news. They are not improving subjects.
Say the least. Never read the newspapers.
What's this? Someone's dropped a diamond watch. Quite beautiful, isn't it? Wish it were mine, but Rosemary doesn't approve of me wearing anything but pearls, and I'm thoroughly sick of pearls. Make one look so plain, so good, and so, intellectual. Wonder who the watch belongs to.
I wonder who dropped it.
Really is a beautiful watch.
It's also a handsome bracelet.
No, it's not a wristwatch, it's a pocket watch.
It can be worn on your wrist.
Are you putting that in your pocket?
Yes, I am. Miss Mabel, I'm going to make a rather strange request to you.
Oh, pray do. I've been waiting for it all evening.
Huh? Well, don't mention to anybody I've taken charge of this watch. Should anyone write and claim it, then let me know at once.
That is a strange request.
Yes, well, you see, I gave this watch to someone years ago.
You did?
Yes.
Well, then I shall certainly bid you good night. Good night, Gideon.
Good night, Mabel. Oh, Goring. You saw them Lady Markby brought here tonight?
Yes, that was an unpleasant surprise. What did he come here for?
Apparently to try to lure Rosemary into upholding some fraudulent scheme in which he is interested. The Argentine Canal, in fact.
What? Well, he has mistaken his man, hasn't he?
Woman, but yes.
Man, woman.
Yes. He is incapable.
Gender is a fluid concept.
That is very true. But he is incapable of understanding an upright nature like my wife's.
Yes, I should fancy he'd come to grief if he tried to get Rosemary into his toils. It's extraordinary what astounding mistakes clever men make.
I don't call men of that kind clever, I call them stupid.
Same thing often. Good night, Sir Gideon.
Good night.
My dear Amelia, you're not going? Do stop a little.
I'm afraid I can't, thanks. I promised to look into the Heartlocks tonight. I hear they've got a Mauve Hungarian band that plays Mauve Hungarian music. See you soon. Goodbye.
That will do, Jane. Thank you, Mary. How handsome you look tonight, Gideon.
Rosemary, it's not true, is it? You're not going to lend your support to this Argentine speculation? You couldn't.
Who told you I intended to do so?
That man who's just gone out, Mr. Cheveley, as he calls himself now, he seemed to taunt me with it. Rosemary, I know this man. You don't. We were at school together. He was untruthful, dishonest, an evil influence on everybody whose friendship or trust he could win. I hated him. I despised him. He stole things. He was a thief. He was sent away for being a thief. Why'd you let him influence you?
Gideon, what you tell me may be true, but it happened many years ago. It's best forgotten. Mr. Cheveley may have changed since then, and no one should be entirely judged by their past.
One's past is what one is. It is the only way by which people should be judged.
That is a hard saying, Gideon.
It is a true saying, Rosemary. And what did he mean by boasting that he had gotten you to support, to lend your name, your support, to a thing I've heard you describe as the most fraudulent and dishonest scheme there's ever been in political life?
I was mistaken in the view I took. We may all make mistakes.
But you told me yesterday you received a report from the Commission, which entirely condemned the whole thing.
I have reasons now to believe that the commissioners have been prejudiced, or at any rate, misinformed. Besides, Gideon, private and public life are different things. They have different laws and they move on different lines.
They should both represent a person at their highest. I see no difference between them.
In the present case, on a matter of practical politics, I have changed my mind. That is all.
All?
Yes.
Rosemary, it is horrible I have to even ask you such a question. Rosemary, are you telling me the whole truth?
Why do you ask me such a question?
Why do you not answer it?
Gideon, truth is a very complex thing, and politics a very complex business. There are wheels within wheels, and one may be under certain obligations to people that one must pay. Sooner or later in political life, one has to compromise. Everyone does.
Compromise? Why do you talk so differently tonight from the way you've always talked? Why are you changed?
I am not changed. But circumstances alter things.
Circumstances should never alter principles.
But if I told you...
What?
That it was necessary. Vitally necessary.
It can never be necessary to do what is not honourable. Or if it be necessary, then what is it I have loved? But it is not, Rosemary. Tell me it is not. Why should it be? What gain would you get? Money? We have no need of that. And money that comes from a tainted source is a degradation. Power? But power is nothing in and of itself. It is power to do good that is fine. That and that only. What is it then, Rosemary? Tell me why you're going to do this dishonourable thing.
Gideon, you have no right to use that word. I've told you it was a matter of rational compromise. It is no more than that.
Rosemary, that is all very well for other people. For people who treat life simply as a sordid speculation. But not for you, Rosemary. Not for you. You are different. All your life you have stood apart from the others. You have never let the world soil you. To the world, as to myself. You've been an ideal. Always. Oh, be that ideal still. That great inheritance, throw not away. That tower of ivory, do not destroy. Rosemary, women can love that which is beneath them. Things unworthy, stained, dishonored. We men, we worship when we love. And when we lose that worship, we lose everything. Don't kill my love for you, Rosemary. Don't kill that.
Gideon!
I know that there are people with horrible secrets in their lives. People who've done some shameful thing and who in some critical moment have to pay for it. Perhaps by doing some other act of shame. Don't tell me you are such as they are. Rosemary, is there in your life any secret dishonor or disgrace? Tell me at once, so that
what?
So that our lives may drift apart.
Drift apart?
So that they may be entirely separate. It would be better for us both.
Gideon, there is nothing in my past life that you might not know.
I was sure of it, Rosie. I was sure of it. But why did you say those dreadful things? Things so unlike your real self. Let us never talk about the subject again. You will write to him, won't you? To Mr. Cheveley, and tell him that you cannot support this scheme of his. If you have given him any promise, you must take it back. That is all.
Must I write and tell him that?
Surely, what else is there to do?
I might see him personally. It would be better.
Rosemary, you must never see this man again. He's not a person you should ever speak to. He's not worthy to talk to a woman like you. No, write to him at once, now, this moment, and let your letter show him that your decision is irrevocable.
Right this moment?
Yes.
But it is so late, it is close on 12.
That makes no matter. He must know at once that he has been mistaken in you, and that you are not a woman to do anything base, or underhand, or dishonourable. Write here, Rosemary. Write that you decline to uphold this scheme of his, as you hold it to be a dishonest scheme. Yes, write the word dishonest. He knows what that word means. In the envelope, yes. Have this letter sent at once to Claridge's Hotel. There is no answer. Rosemary, love gives one an instinct to things. I feel tonight that I have saved you from something that might have been a danger to you, from something that might have made people honor you less than they do. I don't think you realize sufficiently that you have brought into the political life of our time a nobler atmosphere, a finer attitude towards life, a freer air, of purer aims and higher ideals. I know it. For that I love you.
Love me always, Gideon. Love me always.
I will always love you, because you will always be worthy of love. You must love the highest when you see it.
Is it all right if we clear away something, little lady?
Yes, please do, Mary, of course. Good night.
Good night. Mary, did you read that letter?
I told you, I don't do that.
Well, it makes no matter, since I heard most of their conversation.
Jane, I don't understand.
Fine, fine. I am willing to drop the subject of our perfect employers. But even you must have something to say about Mr. Cheveley.
Now wearing purple.
Yes.
Oh, I'm Mr. Cheveley. I'm from Vienna. So important. Yes, I noticed him.
Oh, and Lady Markby as well. Well, Lady Rosemary certainly seemed to get along with him.
I don't think Lady Goring did.
Oh, you can say that again. Did you see her face?
I do wonder what happened there. But it's not my place.
Just when we're getting somewhere.
Yes, well. Excuse me, my lady.
I'm sorry. Well, Goring seemed to have eyes for someone else, though.
Do you mean Miss Mabel? That certainly would be a favourable match for them both. And they do seem to enjoy each other's company.
Oh, you should go to bed, Miss Mabel. They changed their tune about that when we worked here a while. I'm telling you, they have been doing this for years. Oh, you should.
Well, this is a very awkward business. Very awkward indeed. I think you should have told your husband the whole thing. Secrets from other people's husbands are a necessary luxury in modern life. So at least I'm always told at the club by people with wrinkles enough to know better. No woman should have a secret from her own husband. He invariably finds out. Men have a wonderful instinct about things. They can discover everything. Except the obvious.
I mean, I couldn't tell my husband. When could I have told him? Not last night. It would have made a lifelong separation between us, and I would have lost the love of the one man in the world they worship. The only man who has ever still loved within me. No, last night it would have been quite impossible. He would have turned away from me in horror and in contempt.
Is Sir Gideon as perfect as all that?
Yes, my husband is as perfect as all that.
Oh, what a pity. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Rosemary. I didn't quite mean that. But, if what you tell me is true, I should like to have a serious talk about life with Sir Gideon.
It would be quite useless.
May I try?
Yes, but nothing can make him alter his views.
Well, at worst it would simply be a psychological experiment.
All such experiments are terribly dangerous.
Everything is dangerous, my dear. I dare say if it wasn't so, life wouldn't be worth living. Well, I'm bound to say I think you should have told him years ago.
When? When we were engaged? Do you think he would have married me if he had known that the origin of my fortune is such as it is? The basis of my career is such as it is? And that I had done something that I suppose most people would call shameful and dishonourable?
Yes, most people would call it ugly names. There's no doubt of that.
People who, each and one of them, have worse secrets in their own lives and do the same thing themselves every day.
That's why they're so interested in finding out other people's secrets. Distracts public attention from their own.
And after all, whom did I wrong by what I did? No one.
Except yourself, Rosemary.
Of course, I had private information about a certain transaction contemplated by the government of the day, and I acted on it. Private information is practically the source of every large modern fortune.
And public scandal invariably the result.
Amelia, do you think that what I did nearly 18 years ago should be brought up against me now? Is it fair that someone's whole life should be ruined for the fault done in one's childhood almost? I was 22 at the time, and I had the double misfortune of being well born and poor. Two unforgivable things nowadays. Is it fair that someone's whole career should be wrecked for the sin, the folly of one's youth, if men choose to call it a sin? Is it fair that it should shatter a life like mine, to shatter all that I worked for, all that I built up? Is it fair, Amelia?
Life's never fair, Rosemary, and perhaps it's a good thing for most of us that it is not.
Every woman of ambition has to fight this century with its own weapons. What this century worships is wealth. The god of this century is wealth. To succeed, one must have wealth. At all costs, one must have wealth.
You underrate yourself, Rosemary. Believe me, without wealth, you could have succeeded just as well.
When I was old, perhaps. When I had lost my passion for power or could not use it. When I was tired, worn out and disappointed. I wanted my success when I was young. Youth is the time for success. I couldn't wait.
Well, you've certainly had your success while you were still young. No one in our day has had such a brilliant success. Under-Secretary for Foreign Affairs at the age of 40. That's good enough for anyone, I should think.
And if it is all taken away from me now, if I lose everything of our horrible scandal, if I'm hounded from public life.
Oh, Rosemary, how could you have sold yourself for money?
I did not sell myself for money. I bought success at a great price, that is all.
Yes, you certainly paid a great price for it. But what first made you think of doing such a thing?
Baroness Arnheim.
Oh, damned villain.
No, she was a woman of a most refined and subtle intellect. A woman of culture, charm and distinction. One of the most intellectual women I ever met.
Ah! I prefer a ladylike fool any day. There's more to be said for stupidity than people imagine. Personally, I have a great admiration for stupidity. It is a sort of, fellow feeling, I suppose. Tell me, Rosemary, how did the Baroness meet you? What happened?
One night of the dinner at Lord Radley's, the Baroness began talking about success in modern life as something one can reduce to an absolutely definite science. With that wonderfully fascinating quiet voice of hers, she expounded to us the most terrible of all philosophies, the philosophy of power, and preached to us the most marvellous of all gospels, the gospel of gold. I think she saw the effect she had produced on me, for some days afterwards she wrote and asked me to come and see her. She was living then in Park Lane, in the house of Woolcombe has now. I remember so well how, with a strange smile on her pale curved lips, she led me through a wonderful picture gallery, showed me her tapestries, her enamels, her jewels and her carved ivories. It made me wonder at the strange loveliness of the luxury in which she lived. And then she told me that luxury was nothing but a background, a painted scene in a play, and that power, power over others, power over the world, was the one thing worth having, the one supreme pleasure worth knowing, the one joy one never tires of, and that in our century, only the rich possessed it.
A, thoroughly shallow creed.
I didn't think so then. I don't think so now. Wealth has given me enormous power. It gave me at the very outset of my life freedom. and freedom is everything. You have never been poor, never known what ambition is. You cannot understand what a wonderful chance the Baroness gave me. Such a chance as few women get.
Fortunately for them, if one is to judge by results. But tell me, Rosemary, how did the Baroness finally persuade you to do what you did?
As I was going away, the Baroness said to me that if I could ever give her any private information of real value, she would make me very rich. I was dazed at the prospect she held out to me, and my ambition and my desire for power were at the time boundless. 6 weeks later, certain private documents passed through my hands.
State documents.
Yes?
I had no idea that you, of all people in the world, should have been so weak, Rosemary, as to yield to such a temptation as Baroness Arnheim held out to you.
Weak? Oh, I'm sick of hearing that word. Sick of using it about others. Weak? Do you really think, Amelia, that it is weakness that yields to temptation? I tell you that there are terrible temptations that require strength and courage to yield to stake all one's life on a single moment, to risk everything on one throw. Whether the stake be power or pleasure, I cannot. But there is no weakness in that. There is a terrible courage. I had that courage. I sat down the same afternoon and wrote Baroness Arnheim the letter this man now holds. She made £750,000 over the transaction.
And you?
I received from Baroness Arnheim £110,000.
You were worth more, Rosemary.
No. That money gave me exactly what I wanted. Power over others. I went to the House of Commons immediately. The Baroness advised me in finance from time to time, and before 5 years I had almost trebled my fortune. Since then, everything I have touched has turned out a success. And all things connected with money, I've had a luck so extraordinary that sometimes it has made me almost afraid. I remember reading in a strange book that when the gods wish to punish us, they answer our prayers.
But tell me, Rosemary, did you never suffer any regret for what you had done?
No. I felt that I had fought the century with its own weapons and won.
You thought you had won?
I thought so. Amelia, do you despise me for what I have told you?
I am very sorry for you, Rosemary. Very sorry indeed.
I don't say I suffered much remorse. I didn't. Not remorse in the ordinary, rather silly sense of the word. But I have paid conscience money many times since then. I had a wild hope that I might disarm destiny. The sum Baroness Arnheim gave me I have distributed twice over in public charity since then.
In public charities? Dear me, Rosemary, what a lot of harm you must have done.
Amelia, don't say that. Don't talk like that.
Never mind what I say, Rosemary. I'm always saying what I shouldn't say. In fact, I usually say what I really think. A great mistake nowadays that makes one so liable to be misunderstood. As regards to this dreadful business, I will help you in whatever way I can. Of course you know that.
Amelia, thank you. But what is to be done? What can be done?
Well, the English can't stand someone who are always saying they're in the right, but they're very fond of anyone who admits they've been in the wrong. It's one of the best things in that. However, Rosemary, in your case, a confession would not do. The money, if you will allow me to say so, is awkward. Besides, even if you did make a clean breast of the whole affair, you would never be able to talk morality again. And in England, someone who can't talk morality twice a week to a large, popular, immoral audience is quite over as a serious politician. There'd be nothing left for her as a profession except teaching on a stage.
No, a confession would ruin me.
Yes.
The only thing left for me to do now is to fight the thing out.
Ah! I was waiting for you to say that. It's the only thing to do now. And you must begin by telling your husband the whole thing.
That I will not do.
Rosemary, believe me, you are wrong.
I couldn't do it. It would kill his love for me. And now, about this man, this Mr. Cheveley. How can I defend myself against him? You knew him before, Amelia, apparently.
Yes!
Did you know him well?
So little that I got engaged to be married to him once when I was staying at the Tenbys. The affair lasted for 3 days. Nearly.
Why was it broken off?
Oh, why do you imagine? Well, it makes no matter anyway. By the way, have you tried him with money? He used to be confoundedly fond of money.
I offered him any sum he wanted. He refused.
Ah, then the marvellous gospel of gold breaks down sometimes. The rich can't do everything after all.
Not everything. Well, Amelia, I suppose you're right. I feel the public disgrace is in store for me. I feel certain of it. I never knew what terror was before. I know it now. It is as if a hand of ice were laid upon one's heart. It is as if one's heart beating itself to death in some empty hollow.
Rosemary must fight him. You must fight him.
But how?
I can't tell you how at present. I've not the smallest idea. But everyone has some weak point. There's some flaw in each of us. Mother tells me that I have faults. Perhaps I have. I don't know.
Can't imagine. But in defending myself against Mr. Cheveley, I have a right to use any weapon I can find, have I not?
In your case, I don't think I should have the smallest scruple in doing so. He is thoroughly well able to take care of himself.
Well, I will send a cipher telegram to the embassy at Vienna to inquire if there is anything known against him. There may be some secret scandal he might be afraid of.
Oh, I should fancy Mr. Cheveley is one of those very modern men of our time who find a new scandal as becoming as a new hat and air them both in the park every afternoon at 5:30. I'm sure he adores scandals, and the one sorrow of his life at present is that he can't manage to have enough of them.
Why do you say that?
Well, he wore far too much perfume last night. Far too little hair products. That's always a sign of despair in a man.
But it is worth my writing to Vienna, is it not?
It's always worthwhile asking a question, though it is not always worthwhile answering one.
Is Mr. Trafford in his room?
Yes, Lady Rosemary.
Have him send us off in cipher at once. There must not be a moment's delay.
Yes, Lady Rosemary.
Oh, just give that back to me again. Thank you. He must have had some curious hold of a Baroness Arnheim. I wonder what it was.
I wonder.
Well, I will fight him to the death, Amelia, as long as my husband knows nothing.
Oh, fight in any case. In any case.
If my husband found out, there would be little left to fight for. But I will let you know the results when I hear back from Vienna. It is a chance, just a chance, but I believe in it. And as he fought the age with his weapons, I will fight him with his weapons. It is only fair. And it looks like a man with a past, doesn't he?
Most handsome men do. But there's a fashion in pasts, just as there's a fashion in frocks. Perhaps Mr. Cheveley's past is merely a slightly more daring one, and they are excessively popular nowadays. Besides, Rosemary, I should not build too high hopes on frightening Mr. Cheveley. I shouldn't fancy Mr. Cheveley as a man who would be easily frightened. He survived all his creditors, and he shows wonderful presence of mind.
I live on hopes now. I clutch at every chance. I feel as though I am on a ship that is sinking. There is water around my feet, and the very air is bitter with storm.
Hello there.
Oh, hush, I hear my husband's voice.
Oh, good afternoon, Lady Goring.
Good afternoon, Sir Gideon. Have you been in the park?
I have just come back from the Women's Liberal Association. Where, by the way, Rosemary, your name was received with loud applause. And now I've come in to have my tea. You will wait and have some tea, won't you? Take off that hat.
Yes, I think I shall wait for a moment, thanks.
I'll be back in a moment. I'm only going to take my coat off.
Oh, please don't. It's so pretty. One of the prettiest coats I ever saw. I hope the Women's Liberal Association received it with loud applause.
I wish to. But we do have much more important work to do than to discuss each other's coats, Lady Goring.
Really? What sort of work?
Oh, dull, delightful, useful things like factory acts, female inspectors, late hours bill, the parliamentary franchise, all sorts of things that you would find thoroughly uninteresting.
And never coats.
Never coats!
You've been a good friend to me, Amelia. A thoroughly good friend.
I don't think I've been able to do much for you as yet, Rosemary. In fact, I don't think I've been able to do anything for you. I'm thoroughly disappointed in myself.
You've enabled me to tell you the truth. That is something. The truth has always stifled me.
Ah, the truth is the thing I get rid of as soon as possible. That habit, by the way, makes one very unpopular at the club.
I can imagine.
With the older members. Especially. They call it being conceited.
Really?
Perhaps it is.
I wish I could tell the truth. To live the truth. That is a great thing in life, isn't it? To live the truth. I will see you again soon, Amelia, shan't I?
Oh, certainly. Whenever you like. I am going to look in at that ball Mrs. Fairfax is hosting, unless I can find something better to do. But I'll come round tomorrow morning. If you should want me tonight by any chance, then send round a note to Curzon Street.
Thanks.
Oh, you're not going, Rosemary?
I have some letters to write, dear.
Oh, you work too hard. You always look so tired and you never seem to think of yourself.
It is nothing, dear. Nothing.
Such a shame about the coat.
I know. That's a whole other thing. Just sit down. I want to talk to you about not coats, or the Women's Liberal Association.
You want to talk to me about Mr. Cheveley?
Yes. You guessed it. I found out that after you left last night, what he said was really true. Of course, I made Rosemary write him a letter at once, withdrawing her promise.
So she gave me to understand.
To have kept it would have been the first stain on a career that has been stainless always. Rosemary must be above reproach. She is not like other politicians. You cannot afford to do what other politicians do. Don't you agree with me? You are Rosemary's greatest friend. You're our greatest friend. No one, except myself, knows Rosemary better than you do. She has no secrets from me, and I don't think she has any from you.
Well, she certainly has no secrets from me. At least I don't think so.
Then am I not right in my estimate of her? Well, I know I am right, but speak to me frankly.
Quite frankly.
And surely you have nothing to conceal, have you?
Nothing. But, I think, Sir Gideon, that, in practical life...
Of which you know so little, Lady Goring.
Of which I know nothing by experience, though I do know something by observation. I think that, in practical life, there is something about success, actual success, that is a little unscrupulous. Something about ambition that is unscrupulous always. Once a woman has set her heart and soul on getting to a certain point, if she has to climb the crag, she climbs the crag. If she has to walk in the mire...
Well?
She walks in the mire. Of course, I'm only speaking generally about life.
I hope so. Why'd you look at me so strangely, Lady Goring?
Sir Gideon, I think if you will allow me, I have sometimes thought that perhaps you are a little hard in some of your views on life. I think that perhaps you don't make sufficient allowances. I mean, in every nature there are elements of weakness, or worse than weakness. Supposing, for instance, that any public person, my mother or Lord Merton or Rosemary, say, had years ago written some foolish letter to someone...
What do you mean by foolish letter?
A letter greatly compromising one's position. I'm only putting on an imaginary case.
Rosemary Rosemary is as incapable of doing a foolish thing as she is of doing a wrong thing.
No one's incapable of doing a foolish thing. No one's incapable of doing a wrong thing.
I'm sure a pessimist. What will the other dandies say? They will have to go into mourning.
No, indeed, Sir Gideon, I am not a pessimist. I don't think I know what pessimism really means. All I know is that life cannot be understood without much charity. Cannot be lived without much charity. It's love and not German philosophy that is the true explanation of this world. Whatever may be the explanation of the next. And Sir Gideon, if you are ever in trouble and should want me, then I would help you in whatever way I can. Trust me absolutely and come to me for my assistance and you shall have it. Come at once to me.
Lady Goring, you're talking quite seriously. I don't think I've ever heard you talk seriously before.
Please excuse me, it won't occur again if I can help it.
But I do like you to be serious.
Dear Gideon, don't say such a dreadful thing to Lady Goring. Seriousness would be very unbecoming to her. Good afternoon, Lady Goring. Pray be as trivial as you can.
I should very much like to, Miss Mabel, but I'm afraid I'm a little out of practice this morning, and besides, I have to be going now.
Just as I come in, what dreadful manners you have. Sure you were very badly brought up.
I was.
I wish I had brought you up.
I'm so sorry you didn't.
It's too late now, I suppose. We shall see. Will you write tomorrow?
Yes, at 10.
Don't forget.
Of course I shan't. By the way, Sir Gideon, there's no list of your guests in the Morning Post of today. It's apparently been crowded out by the County Council or the Lambeth Conference or something equally boring. Could you let me have a list? I have a particular reason for asking you.
I'm sure Mr. Trafford would be able to give you one.
Thanks so much.
Ah, Tommy is the most useful person in London.
And who's the most ornamental?
I am.
How clever of you to guess it. By the way, goodbye, Sir Gideon. You will remember what I said to you, won't you?
Yes, but I don't know why you said it to me.
I hardly know myself.
I wish you were not going, Amelia. I've had 4 wonderful adventures this morning. 4.5, in fact. You might stop and listen to some of them.
How very selfish of you to have 4.5. There won't be any left for me.
I don't want you to have any. They wouldn't be good for you.
That is the first unkind thing you have ever said to me. How charmingly you said it, eh? It's in tomorrow.
Sharp.
Quite sharp, but don't be Mr. Trafford.
Of course I shan't bring Tommy Trafford. Tommy Trafford is in great disgrace.
I am delighted to hear it.
Gideon, I wish you would speak to Tommy Trafford.
Is this one of your adventures? What has poor Mr. Trafford done this time? Rosemary says he's the greatest secretary she's ever had.
Well, Tommy has proposed to me. Again. Tommy really does nothing but propose to me.
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
He proposed to me last night in the music room, where I was quite unprotected, as there was an elaborate trio going on. I didn't dare make the smallest repartee, I need hardly tell you, Gideon. Oh, it would have stopped the music at once. Musical people, they are so absurdly unreasonable. Always want one to be perfectly dumb at the very moment when one is longing to be absolutely deaf. And then, this morning, refers to me again, in broad daylight, in front of that dreadful statue of Achilles.
Achilles, yeah.
work of art. Quite appalling. Really, you should talk to Rosemary. The police should interfere. I mean, it's getting out of hand. Jesus.
I'll make a note.
And then, today at luncheon, I saw by the glare in his eye that he was going to propose to me again. But, and here's the best part, I managed to stop him just in time by assuring him that I was a pescatarian. I don't actually know what pescatarianism means, and I don't believe anybody else does either.
Yes, then go on.
But you see now, the observation crushed Tommy for 10 whole minutes. He looked quite shocked. Extraordinary, really. And then Tommy's so annoying in the way he proposes. You know, if he were to do it at the top of his voice, I shouldn't mind so much. Might cause some effect on the public. But he does it in a horrid sort of confidential way. When Tommy wants to be romantic, he talks to one just like a doctor. It really is very unattractive. I'm very fond of Tommy, but his methods of proposing are quite out of date. I wish you would talk to him, Gideon, and tell him that once a week is quite often enough to propose to anyone, and that it should always be done in a manner that attracts some attention.
Perhaps he does propose a bit too much, but he's not a dreadful prospect. Rosemary thinks very highly of him. She says that he has a brilliant future ahead of him.
I wouldn't marry anyone with a brilliant future ahead of them for anything under the sun, Gideon.
Mabel?
Oh, yes, I know. You married a wife with a future, but then Rosemary was a genius, and you have a noble, self-sacrificing character. You can stand geniuses. I have no character at all, and Rosemary's the only genius I could ever bear. As a rule, I find them quite impossible geniuses. You know, they talk so much, don't they? Such a bad habit. And then, they are always thinking about others when I want them to be thinking about me. Well, I must go around now and rehearse at Sir Basildon's. You remember, we are rehearsing for a play, don't you? The Triumph of, something, I can't remember. I hope it will be the triumph of me, though. That is the only triumph I'm really interested in.
Naturally.
See you soon, Gideon. Goodbye.
Yes, goodbye.
Gideon, do you know who's coming to see you? It is that dreadful Mr. Cheever. Yes, in a most handsome suit. Did you ask him?
Cheaply? Coming to see me? Impossible.
No. I assure you, he's coming upstairs. As large as life, but not near so natural.
Well, Mabel, you don't have to wait. Remember, you have to rehearse at Sir Basildon's.
Oh, but you see, Mr. Cheever's brought Lady Markby with him. I must shake hands with her. She's delightful. I love being scolded by her.
Lady Markby and Mr. Cheveley.
Oh, Lady Markby, how nice of you to come and see me.
Oh, of course, Nick.
Mr. Cheveley, won't you sit down?
Oh, thank you. Isn't that Miss Chiltern? I should so much like to know her.
Mabel, Mr. Cheveley wishes to know you.
I thought your frock so charming last night, Miss Mabel. So simple and suitable.
Really? Oh. I must send a telegram to my dressmaker at once. What a surprise it will be to her. I must be going now, Lady Martha. Goodbye.
Going already?
Well, yes, I'm sorry, but I'm obliged to. I'm just off to rehearsals.
Oh.
I've got to stand on my head for a play.
On your head? Oh, I hope not, child. I believe it is most unhealthy.
Oh, but it is for an excellent charity. In aid of the undeserving. The only people I'm really interested in, you see. I am the secretary and Tommy Trafford is treasurer.
And what is Lady Goring?
She's president.
The post should suit her admirably. Unless She has deteriorated since I knew her first.
You are remarkably modern, Mabel. A bit too modern, perhaps. Nothing is as thing as being too modern. One is apt to go old-fashioned quite rapidly. I have known many instances of it.
That is a dreadful prospect.
Oh, thank you.
Of course.
You need not to worry, dear. You will always be as pretty as possible, and that is the best fashion there is, and the only fashion that England succeeds in setting.
Well, thank you, Lady Markby, for England. And myself?
Oh, yes. Dear Ian, we just called to ask a funny thank you.
Of course.
Mr. Sheep's diamond watch has been found. Oh, yes.
Here?
Yes, I missed it when I got back to Claridge's and Fall. I might possibly have dropped it here.
I've heard nothing about it, but I can send for the butler and ask.
Oh, pray don't trouble Sir Gideon. I dare say I lost at the opera before we came out.
Oh, yes, it must have been at the opera. Oh, the fact is we all scramble yourself so much nowadays, and I wonder we have anything left on us at the end of an evening. Oh, I know myself that I, whenever I come back from the drawing room, always feel as if I hadn't a shred on me, except a small shred of decent reputation, of course. Just enough to prevent the lower classes from making painful observations through the windows of the carriage. The fact is that society is terribly overpopulated. Really, someone should arrange a proper scheme of assisted immigration. It would do a great deal of good.
I quite agree with you, Lady Markby. It is nearly 60 years since I've been in London for the season, and I must say, society has become dreadfully mixed.
Oh, yes.
One sees the oddest people everywhere.
That is quite true, dear, but one needn't know them. I don't know half the people who come to my house, and from what I've heard, I shouldn't like.
What sort of watch was it that you lost, Mr. Sheep?
A diamond watch, ornamented with a snake and a ruby. Rather large.
I thought you said it was a sapphire on the head, dear.
No, Lady Markby, a ruby.
And a very becoming, I'm quite sure.
Has a diamond and ruby watch been found in any of the rooms this morning, Jane?
No, sir.
Well, it is really of no consequence, Sir Gideon. I'm sorry to put you at any inconvenience.
No, it has been no inconvenience. That'll do, Jane. You could bring in some tea.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Of course.
It is most annoying to lose anything. I remember once at Bath, years ago, losing an exceedingly handsome cameo bracelet that Sir John had given me, and I don't believe he has given me anything since, I'm sorry to say. He has sadly deteriorated. Really, this horrid House of Commons is quite ruining our spouses for us. Indeed, the lower house is by far the greatest blow to happy married life there has been since that terrible thing called higher education of women was invented.
It's heresy to say that in this house, Lady Markby. Rosemary is a great champion of the higher education of women, and so, I'm afraid, am I.
The higher education of men is what I should like to see.
Oh.
Some men need it so sadly.
I'm afraid such a scheme will be quite impractical because I don't believe man has much room for development. He's got as far as he can, and that is not far. Isn't it? But in regards to women, dear Gideon, you belong to the younger generation. I suppose it's alright if you approve of it. But you know, in my time, us girls were taught not to understand anything. That was the old times, and wonderfully interesting it was. And I can assure you that the amount of things me and my poor dear sister were taught not to understand, while still being expected to be on the top of our game during our wedding night, was. From what I've heard, modern women understand everything, I am told.
Except your spouses. That is the one thing the modern person never understands.
That's quite good of them too, dear, I dare say. It would bring a very happy home if they did. Not yours, I need hardly say, Sir Gideon. You husband, but since Sir John started attending the debates regularly, which he never used to do in the good old days, his language has actually become quite impossible. He always seems to think that he's addressing the House, and consequently, whenever he brings up the states of the Union's workers or women's right or something quite improper like that, I am obliged to send a servant out of the room. Because it is not pleasant to see one's own butler, who's been with one for 23 years, actually blushing at the sideboard, and a footman giggling in corners like persons at circuses. I can assure you that my life will be quite ruined unless they send Sir John to the upper house at once, because he won't take an interest in politics then, will he? You know, the House of Lords are so sensible, and assembly of gentlemen, but right now Sir John really is a great trial. Why, now this morning, before breakfast was half over, he stood up with the hearthrug, put his hands in his pockets, and appealed to the clerk at the top of his voice, and I left the table before I had my cup of tea, I need hardly say, but his violent language could be heard all over the house. Lady Rosemary is not like that, is she?
But I enjoy listening to politics. I love to hear Rosemary talk about them.
Yes.
May I give you some tea? Some tea. There you go.
Okay, thanks. I actually promised to go round to see poor Lady Brancaster, who is in great deal of trouble. Her daughter, quite a well-brought-up girl too, has actually gotten engaged to be married to a minister from Shropshire. Oh, it is very sad indeed. I can't understand this water mania for ministers. In my time as girls, of course, saw them running around the place like rabbits, but we didn't take any notice, but I need hardly say. But from what I've heard now, the countryside is quite a honeycomb with them, and I think it's And then the son was called with his father, and it is said that when they meet at the club, Lord Brancaster always hides himself behind the money article in the Times, so from what I've heard, it's like quite a common occurrence nowadays, and that the clubs have to use Oh, bless you, dear.
Thank you.
Where were I? Minister, elder son. Oh, yes. The clubs at St. James Street, they always has to buy extra copies of the Times because there are so many fathers who won't have anything to do with their sons, and so many sons who won't talk to their fathers. I think it is mostly to be regretted.
Oh, so do I. Fathers have so much to learn from their sons.
Really, dear? What?
The art of living, the only really fine art we have produced in modern times.
Well, Lord Brancaster knew a great deal about that. More than his poor wife ever did. You've met Lady Brancaster, haven't you, Gideon?
Only on one occasion. She was staying at Langton last Saturday. You were there?
Oh, she's the very picture of happiness, as you no doubt noticed, but there have been many tragedies in her life. Her own sister, Mrs. Jeffrey, thank you,
Of course.
lived the most unhappy life through no fault of her own, I am sorry to say. She ultimately got so broken-hearted that she joined a convent. Was it the operatic stage? I can't remember. Wait, no. It was decorative art needlework. All I know is that she lost all sense of pleasure in life.
Yeah,
Well,
do you think
now,
that's
Gideon, if you allow me, I shall leave Mr. Sheevley in your charge and call for him in a quarter of an hour, if not Mr. Sheevley. You wouldn't mind waiting in the carriage while I'm at Brancaster's, because, you know, as I only intend to be a visit of condolences, I shan't stay long.
I don't mind waiting in the carriage a bit, provided there is somebody to look at one.
Well, the minister's always fooling about the house, so you can always do it.
I do hope that Mr. Cheveley will stay here a little. I should like to have a few minutes conversation with him.
Why, thank you, Sir Gideon. Believe me, nothing would give me great pleasure.
Oh, may dive the bed if you have so many pleasant reminiscences of your school days to look over together. Sit.
Thank you.
Of course. Goodbye, dear Gideon. Shall I meet you at Lady Brancaster's tonight she has discovered a new genius and he does nothing at all, I believe. That is a great comfort, is it not?
Rosemary and I will be dining at home by ourselves this evening.
Oh.
And I don't think I shall go anywhere afterwards. Rosemary, of course, will have to be in the house, though I dare say nothing out of the ordinary will happen there.
Dining at home by yourself is a quiet, proper... Well, oh, sorry, I forgot. Your wife is an exception. My husband is the general rule, and nothing ages a person as rapidly as being married to the general rule. And I'm trying to talk to him, but he never listens, and he just interrupts me all the time, and I think it is rather dreadful. And I thought...
Wonderful woman, Lady Markby, isn't she? Talks more and says less than anybody I ever met. She is made to be a public speaker. Much more so than her husband, though he is the typical Englishman. Always dull and usually ignorant.
Mr. Cheveley, I think it is right to tell you quite frankly that had I known who you really were, I should not have invited you to my house last night.
Really?
I could not have done so.
I see you've not changed a bit, Gideon.
I never change.
Then life has taught you nothing.
It has taught me that a person who has once been guilty of a dishonest and dishonourable action may be guilty of a second time, should be shunned.
Would you, apply that rule to everyone?
Yes, to everyone, without exception.
Oh, then I am sorry for you, Gideon. Very sorry for you.
You see now, I am sure, that for many reasons, any further acquaintance between us during your little stay in London is quite impossible.
Do you know, Gideon, I don't mind your talking morality a bit. Morality is simply the attitude we adopt towards people whom we personally dislike. You dislike me. I'm quite aware of that. And I have always detested you. And yet, I have come here to do you a service.
Like this service you wished to render my wife last night, I suppose. Thank heaven I saved her from that.
It was you who made her write that insolent letter to me. It was you who made her break her promise.
Yes.
Then you must make her keep it. I give you till tomorrow at noon, no more. If by that time your wife has not solemnly bound herself to this scheme into
This
which
fraudulent speculation.
I'll call it what you choose. I hold your wife in the hollow of my hand. And if you're wise, you will make her do what I tell her.
You are impertinent. What has my wife to do with you? With a man like you?
In this world, like meets with like. It's because your wife herself is fraudulent and dishonest that we pair so well together. Between you and her, there are chasms. She and I are closer than friends.
What are you
We are
trying to
enemies
say?
linked together. The same sin binds us.
How dare you class my wife with yourself? How dare you threaten her or me? Leave my house. You're unfit to enter it.
Your house? A house bought with the price of dishonor. A house in which everything has been paid for by fraud. Ask her what the origin of her fortune is. Get her to tell you how she sold off stockbroker a cabinet secret. Learn from her to what you owe your position.
It is not true. Rosemary, it is not true.
Look at her. Can she deny it? Does she dare to?
Go! Go at once. You've done your worst now.
My worst? I have not yet finished with you. With either of you. I give you till tomorrow morning. If by that time you have not done what I bid you to do, the whole world shall know the origin of Rosemary Chiltern.
Show Mr. Cheveley out.
You saw...
You sold a cabinet secret for money. You began your life with fraud. You built up your career on dishonor. Oh, Tell me it is not true. Lie to me. Lie to me. Tell me it is not true.
What this man has said is quite true. But Gideon, please listen to me. You don't realize how I was tempted. Let me tell you the whole thing.
Don't come near me. Don't touch me. I feel as if you have soiled me forever. What a mask you've been wearing all these years. A horrible painted mask. You sold yourself for money. Oh, a common thief were better. You put yourself up to sale to the highest bidder. You were bought in the market. You lied to the whole world. And yet, you will not lie to me.
Gideon, please.
Don't speak, say nothing. Your voice wakes terrible memories. Memories of things that made me love you. Memories of words that made me love you. Memories that are now horrible to me. And how I worshipped you. You were, to me, something apart from common life. A thing pure, noble, honest, without stain. The world seemed to me finer because you were in it, and goodness more real because you lived. And now, when I think that I made a woman like you my ideal, the ideal of my life.
That was your mistake. That was your error. The error all men commit. Why can't you men just love us, fault and all? Why do you place us on monstrous pedestals? We have all feet of clay, women as well as men. But when we women love men, we love them knowing their weaknesses, their follies, their imperfections. Love them all the more, it may be, for that reason. It is not the perfect, but the imperfect are in need of love. It is when we are wounded by our own hands, or by the hands of others, that love should come to cure us. Else, what use is love at all? All lives, save loveless lives, love should pardon. All sins, except a sin against itself, love should forgive. A woman's love is like that. It is larger, wider, more human than a man's. Men think that they're making ideals of women. What they are making of us are false idols merely. You made your false idol of me. And I had not the courage to come down, show you my wounds and tell you my weaknesses. I was afraid that I might lose your love. As I've lost it now. And so, last night you ruined my life for me. Yes, ruined it! What this man asked of me was nothing compared to what he offered me. He offered security, peace, stability. The sin of my youth that I thought was buried rose up in front of me, hideous, horrible, with his hands at my throat. And I could have killed it forever. Sent it back into his tomb, destroyed his records, burnt the one witness against me. You prevented me. No one but you. You know it. And now, what else is there before me but public disgrace? Ruin, terrible shame, the mockery of the world. A lonely, dishonored life. A lonely, dishonored death it may be someday. Let men make no more ideals of women. Let them not put them at altars and bow before them, or they may ruin other lives as completely as you, whom I have so widely loved, have ruined mine.
Sir, you're embarrassing yourself. I say it for your own sake, sir. I'm so sorry.
What are you doing?
Lady Goring sent me. I have to order a few things.
Pick this up while you're here.
my mess, but okay. You all can leave. Thank you very much. I'm back in 15 minutes. I can't let you look at this.